Welcome to the Marshall News and Views Show. I'm Elaine Conyers, and my guest today is Jason Anderson, who is our Marshall City Assistant City Engineer. And not been with us long, not quite a year yet, but you're a busy person. I see you all around town doing things, and so glad to have you here. And when did you move here?
My wife and I moved to Marshall last September, late September, and we've been starting to kind of assimilate into the community, and we're really happy to be here. We're both excited about our jobs here. Mine with the city, and she actually works here at the college.
Oh, she does. Okay.
She does in the registration office. So things are going well that way, and we've got a lot of family in the area, so it was a very positive move for us that way. So.
And you. I'm sure you're glad to be in a regional center like Marshall.
Absolutely. We're very busy up at City Hall.
Oh,
I
yes.
can assure you of that. And we're running nonstop, but it's a good thing. It's job security.
That's right. That's right. Well, what are you going to tell us about today?
Well, I guess I thought today we could talk a little bit about the importance of properly managing stormwater runoff and what that really means.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yep.
That can be a problem here in Marshall because we're very we've got a low elevation here from the Buffalo Ridge area.
Right,
yeah.
We're very flat here, so it's definitely a concern, and it's a concern across the country. You know, nationwide, there's more and more talk about the importance of managing stormwater runoff and kind of pollutant control in the stormwater runoff. So I thought it'd be something nice to talk about.
Well, that's good. I want to hear about it, and I'm sure our viewers would like to get updated on that.
yeah, and I think what I'll do is we'll maybe cover some background with what is stormwater runoff and how is it polluted, and what is an MS4. That term will kind of come up in our conversation, as well as the word BMP, or best management practices. So. We'll kind of hit those topics, and then we'll talk about, maybe we can talk about what people can do on their end as citizens. So, so what is stormwater runoff? Many of our water pollution problems are due in large part to pollutants that are washed off the land by storm events. So stormwater runoff is the leading source of water pollution in our rivers, lakes, streams, wetlands. Common pollutants in stormwater runoff, pesticides, fertilizers, oils, salts, metals, pathogens, sediment. So these things really do affect our waterways. So that's why it's very important that we consider them. Urbanized areas like the city of Marshall are full of impervious surfaces, paved surfaces.
Sure. Okay.
So the stormwater from a rain event or snow melt just runs off the land. It doesn't infiltrate into the ground surface.
Okay.
So that's a big concern.
Yeah.
And that's where it'll pick up these pollutants that we were just talking about. So that's kind of why the management of stormwater runoff is important. It's important to manage the pollutants, I guess, not to reiterate myself there, but local entities like the City of Marshall are what's called a municipal separate storm sewer system, or an MS4. So municipal separate storm sewer system, MS4.
Is that a low rate or a high rate for?
Well, it's just a term. It's just an acronym to describe those words. But what that means for us is the Federal Clean Water Act back in 1979. Put out these regulations, and then as late as 1999, they became effective for cities of our size.
Okay.
So we have to meet guidelines that are outlined in our MS4 general permit. So to meet those guidelines, the guidelines deal with managing stormwater pollutants and runoff, pretty much.
So is that how do you measure that then?
Okay. Well, yeah. What's outlined in our permit are really 6 things. There's public outreach and education, which events like this that we're doing right now kind of helps hit that.
Get that word out.
Yeah, get the word out. So we need to, we publish flyers and mailings and booklets and do things like that. Try to get the message out about what people can do to help us manage stormwater pollution. Number two, we allow for public participation. Every year we hold a public hearing up at City Hall where people can come in and voice their opinions or concerns about our program and just really offer their input. That hearing is scheduled for June 16th, so coming up next week.
Oh, yes, very soon.
Yep, so if you were to come to that hearing, you would hear a lot of the same information where we talk about what the program is and just what we do and why we do it.
Yeah.
Number three, illicit discharge detection and elimination. So what that means is our permit's telling us that we need to have a program in place to detect maybe contaminated sites or spills or oil spills, things like that, and have a policy and a set in place and ordinances in place to enforce if something were to come up. Number four, construction site runoff control. And what that means is that we need to, on all construction sites, redevelopments or new construction, we need to monitor what they're doing and make sure that they have a plan in place, a stormwater prevention plan in place. Five, post-construction stormwater management. So after you've done your construction and now you're set up, you took a piece of land that was maybe 4 or 5 acres of grassland, and that allows water to infiltrate, and then you built on it and you paved it and you constructed buildings. So you need to have a plan for what you're going to do with that land after you build on it. How are you going to manage the stormwater runoff?
Okay.
And the big concern there is if you take what used to be pervious land, which means water can infiltrate into the ground, and you make it impervious, which means it can't. That definitely has a major impact on stormwater pollution. Not only rate, I mean, because more water will run off, but it also picks up pollutants along the way. Yeah. So, and then number six, the number 6 item in our permit that we have to kind of address is just good housekeeping practices as a city. We need to have policies in place and practices in place to train and manage our people to understand these sorts of things. Well,
now, where do these pollutants come from? Is it coming from foundations of buildings, or I mean, you said it covered. With when you construct and build onto that grass piece, so it makes a different pollution thing. So what do we have to watch for? What do we have to be careful of?
Well, the number one pollutant in an urbanized environment really is just sediment, just soil particles, dirt.
Okay.
That's the number one pollutant to our waterways, to our rivers, lakes, streams, wetlands. So the most important thing to remember is whenever you're disturbing the ground, when you're tilling it up, or you're building, or you're doing anything on your site that disturbs some land, you need to be mindful of what you're doing. And the best thing you can do is keep the erosion on your property. So if you till up some land to do some work, or you do something, you need to be thinking about how you're going to keep the soil on your property. So that could be leaving a grass buffer around the outside edges of your property, so the dirt would run into that and stop there, and not run off the site into our storm sewer system or onto someone else's property. That's an effective method, and probably our most favored method. When we have developers coming in to do work, the best thing they can do in our mind is keep a vegetated buffer around the outside of their property where drainage goes. That helps stop the loss of soil on the site. And what we do to manage that as a city is if you're going to do development or any land disturbing activities within city limits of 2,000 square feet or more, so about the size of a house and a garage, maybe that type of area, then you need to get a land disturbance permit from the city. So you would come up to our offices at the Public Works Department and apply for a permit, where we're going to ask you to just tell us how you plan to manage erosion on your property. It's kind of a source control. So what are some of the
negative elements that you're wanting to control?
Okay, yeah. When and I said sediment's the number one. So when sediment runs off the property, it contains things like phosphorus in it, and grass clippings and leaves are the same thing. They've got phosphorus.
Okay.
So when that makes its way into the water system, it's food for algae.
Oh.
And
okay.
And I'm no water quality scientist, but algae is detrimental to a lot of aquatic life. If it grows too thick, it can block out sunlight, which hurts some aquatic life, some plant growth. And when algae dies, I know that it takes oxygen with it, and when you take the oxygen out of the water, it's very harmful to fish. So.
Okay. When we look at farmland, then that runoff, as you said earlier, contains like fertilizer and different kinds of chemicals like that. You're not basically going to find that in an urban area or a city area, right?
Well, contrary, you will. And that's phosphorus is right in there in the fertilizers, and same with nitrogen and
the fertilizer
potassium.
coming off from the grass, you think?
Yep, it's very much a concern. And, you as an individual property owner probably think it's just one property in this 10 square miles of community. It's not much. It doesn't matter. But if you were to apply a generous amount of fertilizer on your property and then we get a large rain event shortly thereafter, that fertilizer is not going to soak into the soil. It's going to run off, and it's going to end up in our storm sewer, which then ends up in our storm sewer system, which goes to our ponds, which go to the Redwood River, which goes to the Minnesota River.
Okay.
And it does make its way in there, and I assure you it does have an impact. And even things like pet waste, just picking up your pet's poop is an effective way to keep phosphorus out of the water.
And and I guess what I was wanting to know is it eventually goes to our rivers or creeks, and then that's something that we use again, reuse.
Absolutely.
The river water.
Yep. The Redwood River is the primary recipient of our waste or our storm water.
Yeah.
The Cottonwood River basin actually receives some as well.
Oh, really?
But both make their way ultimately to the Minnesota River. Sure. So this is just one big interconnected system, and we all need to do our part to help.
Yeah. And now with learning more about all of this, we can take steps to control it, which you're doing now in educating the general public. I didn't know anything about this.
Yeah.
It's interesting to learn that yes, we do have to be careful about these things.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I mentioned, one thing that the city does, it's more of an enforcement role, but the land disturbance permit. That's an important tool for us to kind of help educate as well. People have to come in to get this permit, and there's a fee. It's a low fee. It's between $35 and $100 for the permit. So if you're building a house, it might cost $50 to $100 for the permit, which it is a fee. It does cost money, but it allows us an opportunity to review a site plan with someone, whether it be a contractor or a homeowner, and just talk about things that are of concern when it comes to this. We ask that they plan to keep the soil on the site, so through grass buffers or silt fence and bio rolls. When they excavate for a basement and they get stockpiles of dirt, we ask that they have a protective barrier around that. Sure. Could also be grass, but it's just don't put it on the street or near the street or next to a stormwater inlet where the water goes. Yeah. Concrete washouts, we'd like to see, if you're pouring concrete, that the concrete, when they wash the chutes out on the concrete truck, that be contained.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Because it's very corrosive, high pH, it's harmful to the environment. We would rather it was contained, it dried, and was disposed of properly in the garbage. Sure. So these are all things. Construction entrances. So there's a rock entrance into a construction site. So when vehicles are traveling in and out, the mud gets a chance to knock off of the vehicles and isn't tracked onto a street, and therefore goes into a storm sewer. Yeah. So all very important things. Yes. But the biggest thing that we can do as a city is work on the individual project level and having everyone do their part. And helping them do their part, helping them identify what they can do. That's right. That's very, very, very important. So I guess I can also probably touch on things that individual homeowners can do.
Yes,
you know,
that'd
you
be
think
great.
That's the most important thing for people. What they want to know is.
Yes.
So there's a handful of things. I've kind of got a list here, but you don't dispose of oils, pesticides, or other chemicals into your driveway, roadways, or storm drain. Seems self-explanatory, but it's
Yeah.
Consider replacing impervious surfaces on your property. If you have driveways, sidewalks, decks, if you can try to find other more pervious materials that let water go through, that's always an option. Things like mulch or pervious pavements or stone. Be sure that your gutter on your home, your drain off your home, discharges over grass and doesn't just discharge onto your driveway. Because it's better if it can filter through the grass and be absorbed and be treated that way, as opposed to just run over the pavement, grabbing pollutants off your roof and the driveway and going right into the river.
Right, yeah.
Collect stormwater runoff in closed rain barrels and use it for watering your garden. If you can collect stormwater that way, that's always a very green technique.
Yeah.
Make sure your automobile is not leaking fluids onto pavements. Instead of washing your car at home, wash it at a commercial car wash where the wash water is collected and sent to the sanitary sewer system where it's treated before it's discharged.
A great idea. And it's a lot easier to do.
Absolutely. And, you know, there's some people that really like to wash their vehicles, and that's fine, too. It's best maybe if you can do that over a grass surface. Maybe you can pull your car just off the driveway to wash it before you pull it back onto the driveway. So those soaps go through the ground and not directly into the river. Sweep up grass clippings that leave your lawn. Don't blow them onto city streets. Like we talked about earlier, they contain fertilizers, phosphorus, nutrients that go into the water, and it's not helpful.
And hopefully people realize that there is an area where you can take, you know, mow your lawn and empty that basket and take it out to, what is that area called? I want to call it a dump, but
the city compost site.
Okay, that's a better word. You see a lot of stuff out there.
We don't want to call it a dump because we'll get too much stuff that we don't want out there.
That's right.
But grass is definitely acceptable.
Yeah,
so.
Good. Because you see a lot of that out at that area. And so there are certainly people that are doing that.
And a big message, too, when you're mowing your lawn is the first few passes when you're next to sidewalks, driveways, and streets, try to adjust so you're going in a direction where the discharge goes back onto your lawn, not on the street. Because sometimes you drive by properties and you see just green all over the street.
Yes.
You know, and if we see that, we'll typically send a letter recommending that they please not do that. But other things you can do: sweep up dirt off your driveway and sidewalks, pick up garbage and pet waste. We mentioned pet waste is high in phosphorus, which is very bad for water quality.
Sure.
Limit pesticide use. Don't fertilize right next to water bodies. Keep a little buffer in there. Pull weeds by hand or spot spray weeds in your lawn as opposed to your whole yard with weed and feed or something. It's best to manage it on an individual basis. So these are all things that are helpful.
Yes, of course. So, well, I'm glad that you came today and you help us understand all of this. And you know, some of us have never had to do things like this. We never even realized that there was a problem with all of that. But yes, we need to really buckle down and do some of these things to keep our environment and our living area safe. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. As every year goes past, there's just going to be more and more attention from the federal and state levels on water quality, and it's just going to put more of a burden on our laps to deal with it. And it's best if we can just handle things before it gets to be too bad and too much regulation.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
So
I do have some pictures too, if we'd like to.
Yeah, let's look at those.
You know, I kind of mentioned earlier that the most important thing maybe not the most important thing, but the biggest thing, the most time-consuming thing we do as a city when it comes to stormwater erosion control for stormwater pollutants, it's through land disturbance permits and through construction projects, even private construction, not just city projects, to manage it on site and make sure that people are doing what they should be doing. So here's a good example of, I didn't address this. It's a good BMP example, best management practice. What a best management practice, what that means is you're doing the best that you can given your circumstance on the site to manage things. So that's a BMP. In this case, erosion control BMPs, it means seeding disturbed areas quickly. It means keeping any erosion on site. Don't let it run off the site. Those types of things. As far as permanent BMPs, ponds. You see a lot of ponds around Marshall. That's a permanent stormwater BMP. It's a rate control best management practice.
Now this is a picture in Marshall, right?
Yeah, all these pictures are in Marshall.
Okay. And this right along here at the bottom, what is that?
That's called a bio-roll. So the purpose for you see down here at the bottom, the bio-roll, the purpose of that is to, if we get a lot of rain and it wants to wash the soil away, it would get caught up next to that bio-roll and not end up in our streets and not up in our storm sewer. I
have seen some of that around town, and well, what's that there for? And now you're telling us this is catching all that stuff rather than putting up. Well, what did you use before?
Silt fences can still be used. The black fence that you see, about 1.5 feet tall, 2 feet tall.
But that doesn't really catch it as much as this would.
Well,
right?
it's also pretty effective. I mean, they're usually slit into the ground, so they're stable, and the water must go through them. They are effective until they get too full. There can be a pile of sediment there that reduces their effectiveness.
Sure.
On this site, the other things that are important to look at is it's seeded and mulched. So instead of just seeing a bunch of black dirt there, they seeded it and then they threw mulch on top to help keep it all in place.
Oh, I see. Sure. Yeah.
So that's an example. Here's an example on a city street project where it was seeded and hydro seeded and mulched. So the seed and mulch are all together. So that's just to show that that's taken care of as well. Another example of a bio-roll used near the river on a pedestrian bridge. We did a pedestrian bridge project, and we put the bio-roll near the bank there.
Yeah, is that over by Liberty maybe Park or?
Off the top of my head, I don't know which one this was.
No, but you have that along the parks like that where the river is running through. Sure, that's good.
Here's an example of maybe poor practice. Where grass clippings get blown onto the street.
Because this is curb here, right?
Yeah.
Right there, and the curb is down lower than the grassed area. It looks like it.
Yep.
So the wind is blowing it off into the street.
Well, and their mower probably had the discharge chute right there, and it put it on the street. And you can see an inlet in there.
Yes. Yeah.
Where that'll get washed right in there. And not only does the grass clippings, not only is it bad for on the nutrient level, but it also can clog the inlet and help it reduce its effectiveness.
Sure.
So.
Yeah.
There's a case where we use some bio-roll along these gabions. There's bio-roll right along the edge there.
Yeah.
You can see bio-roll right along there.
Right, okay.
That's a gabion project we did along the river out by, I believe that's out by Wayside Park.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Here's an example of inlet protection. This is something that we like to ask our developers to do. If they're building or constructing or disturbing soils near an inlet, that they protect it. So in this case, they put silt fence around the inlet, so when water goes through, it stops the sediment and lets just the water go through.
Okay, yeah.
So that's a good practice.
Right, yeah.
Here's another poor management practice. I hope it goes through on the camera, but you can see that there's a lot of dirt and sediment on the road. So what happened was that gets tracked onto the road from a construction site, and that's why we like to ask that construction entrances be placed on the site.
Yeah.
Another one where construction gravel and dirt is tracked onto the road. Good example of hydro seeding. I think this was on a city project as well. You can see it was seeded mulch and there's grass coming through it already, that the mulch helps keep moisture into it. It really is effective in helping the grass grow, and reduces some of the materials coming off. I see there's some accumulated debris in the gutters, which isn't great, but
So anyway, so then and here's a big mound of dirt.
Yeah, this is a good one to show the stockpiles. This material was excavated for the basement, and it was just piled up right next to the curb. So what happens is that it washes out into our curb and down our inlets and into our rivers.
Wow, yeah. When did we actually start using this method, or introducing this method?
A lot of these pictures are from I think about 3 or 4 years ago, so pre my time here. But it was started. The land disturbance permit was started last year.
Okay, because we're seeing things like this now that we haven't really seen. Now that I'm curious, that white stuff on the grass there.
That's the concrete washout. So that's where the concrete trucks washed out and then just left the material on the ground to soak in. And like I mentioned earlier, what we prefer to see is a contained washout site where it's allowed to dry and disposed of.
Yeah.
So that's that one. Another example of grass clippings in the street.
Oh, that's awful.
Pretty bad. A lot of them. Not ideal.
Yeah.
We've already discussed that in pretty good detail.
And sometimes you drive along and you see people sweeping those, into the street because you don't know better. Probably.
Yep, and that's definitely not encouraged.
No.
So here's one where you look and there's just a nice home constructed with a great lawn.
Yep.
And that's after the fact, but here's the next picture is going to show before. During construction, the street looked like that down the road because they did not do an effective job of keeping the soil on the site. So.
Now, how would is it the responsibility of a construction crew to clean up that, or or the homeowner?
The contract.
Okay, all right.
If the homeowner's doing his own work, then he would be responsible.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Here's another example of unprotected stockpiles. So you can see that over here the grass is disturbed all the way to the curb, and then there's a stockpile right behind it. So there's just a free path for the dirt to migrate to the street.
Yeah.
Another example where the lots, and you still see this sometimes, but we're trying to do a better job of helping the developers understand that they need to do some things to prevent this.
Probably a good idea to clean up every day at the end of their work day.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We're getting to see a lot of these, but here's some dirt on the street near an inlet, and that will make its way in there. And it seems like such a little amount for a big river, but it does add up.
Yeah.
I see that we're running low on time, so I think I'll just run through a couple more here. There's a pond that we...
Oh, sure,
Well, we did not install, but it was built, and they did a very nice job of seeding it and mulching it.
And so we used to see a lot of green in those ponds in the fall. With this new control, we probably won't see it, or will we still see a little bit?
It could still happen, but it helps reduce that, the smells and odors and the discoloration. I mean, it helps.
Sure.
Here's maybe another one that's poor practice here. I'll show two more. This one you can see just a lot of debris on the street. There's pallets, stockpiles, a dumpster down the road. Not good practice. No. And one final one with a concrete washout on site.
Oh yeah, right.
Very, very visible.
Yeah. Well, this has been very interesting, and boy, I've learned a lot, and I hope that our viewers have too. It's just something that we have never really probably thought about, and it's very important that we are aware of these things and how, as individuals, we can help too.
Well, I appreciate
the
forum to come on and talk about it, and I hope I didn't bore everyone too much.
Oh, I don't think so at all, and we'll certainly have you back.
Great.
And so thank you again for coming, and thank you for all your good work.
Thank you.